with the co-hosts Kelli Dragovich and Nolan Church, joined in conversation with the Chief People Officer of Athena, Melanie Naranjo. So please welcome our next speakers.
Can you guys hear me? How's everyone doing? All right, so Kelli and I are recovering Chief People Officers, and then we currently have a sitting Chief People Officer. And the first topic we actually want to cover is what's going on with Chief People Officers today, specifically with all of these Chief People Officers either leaving or a huge dissatisfaction with their job. So Kelli, you're like hyper connected. What's going on out there today?
We are all hyper connected. This is, first of all, it's such a great conference. As I mentioned, Robin, just a great vibe, and it's been awesome meeting a lot of you. So thank you for having us. But yes, so it is a little tough out there right now, I would say. I've been doing HR work for about, I think, almost 25 years. I'm rounding up here. And the last 15 years has been in venture. With some pretty tough customers and some very interesting rides that created a lot of success, a lot of scars, a little trauma. Companies like GitHub and Looker and et-cetera. And I'll be honest, I mean, we kind of shake it up in this group, and for since 2018, I was like, I need a fucking break. Like, this is hard, and it's nonstop, and it's thankless, and all the things, right? I mean, has anyone felt that? I mean, I literally felt like I couldn't get off the ride, and it couldn't stop, and it just kept getting faster and faster, and I got very tired. And so I think today we want to talk about what that's like, how to keep pushing, because like many of you, I couldn't stop, right? I was 31 years old, I had twin boys, single income household, and you got to keep on going. And what are some things you can do along that ride that's helpful? But I think it is pretty cynical out there today, Nolan. I'd love to dig into it, hear from Melanie, who's in the job, and how she handles that. But there's a lot of me out there that's now, right, the term of the year, as I told Sally Thornton, is fractional. We all want to do it when we want to do it, not when we have to do it. And that's a whole nother challenge. But I do think it's the best job in the world. I do think a lot of us have been doing it for a while, are tired. And my personal mission is, how do we create the next crop of great HR leaders, knowing that.
So Melanie, one of my takes is that this job is 24/7, but it turns out that like every executive job is 24/7. That includes the CEO, the CFO, the COO, the CRO. It's everybody, but it feels like especially acute with this population. So what do you think is going on?
I think you're right. And I think that can actually be very comforting to sort of acknowledge for a second, because sometimes it does feel like it's HR against the world. Nobody gets HR. We're all alone. And I do think, for the record, there are some very unique things in the HR world. And also, it's helpful to remember, wait a second, we're not alone. I'm not the only one who's felt this. I'm sure that our head of marketing has felt this at some point, whatever. I think what can make it feel particularly acute is that HR for so long has been sort of, seen as, what's that saying, like the redheaded stepchild? It's sort of like, you're not revenue producing, please stay over there, stay in your lane, that sort of thing. And so HR can feel like we're left out, and we can start to like create this narrative for ourselves where, things are tougher for us. I think that really the problem is that we have room to grow when it comes to showing our value. And I know everyone says that it doesn't sound, particularly interesting, but let me give a clear example. So I work for an HR tech company. And when I first joined, I was hired purely to do internal HR. And mind you, we're an HR tech company. So you would think as an HR tech company, we get it. We didn't. And sadly, I've talked, the more HR tech people I've talked to, I talk to a lot of HR people in HR tech because I want to know their story. And I'm like, your CEO gets it, right? And they're like, they don't fucking get it. So even HR tech companies don't get it half the time. And I mean, why? Because raise your hand if you think most HR tech companies are started by HR people. No? Oh my God, what a shocker. No, it started by people who think they can do our jobs better than we can. Yeah, I know.
You just heard of 10 yeses. Yes.
10
That's what we're
yeses.
preaching.
If you're a CEO who thinks you can do your job better than our job better than us, maybe you can. I'm not gonna fight you. Okay, but you should raise your hand so everybody knows who you are. If you no. Oh, okay. So anyways, they hired me to do payroll and benefits. And that was sort of what my CEO wanted. And for the record, I've had this story with her. We've talked about it. You can tell on me. I don't care that this is being recorded, okay? Roxanne, I see you. So she hired me just for payroll and benefits. And that's really all she wanted from me. And outside of that, we didn't really talk very much. And then we're an HR tech company. We sell like harassment prevention trainings. And I was like, Roxanne, what if our buyer's HR and my network's HR, like what if I maybe try and sell a little bit? She was like, what? You? I was like, yeah. So we sort of went on this journey together. And by the way, she's so supportive. I'm telling the story in a bit of a facetious way. Man, it fucking works, okay? It fucking worked. Kelli, when I first joined, we were doing webinars as most HR tech companies, and we were lucky if we'd get 17 people on a webinar. And now we regularly get over 1,000 registrations, 600 people on a webinar. This is within like 2 years of bringing HR into the fold. And now when I talk to my CEO, she reaches out proactively to me. What do you think about the product? How do you think people would respond? What do you think we should be doing? But here's the thing. She never would have done that if I hadn't stepped up to show how I could help. I think a lot of HR people, and I want to have empathy for the record, it's a really scary fucking thing to be like, hey, please pay attention to me, right? It's scary because for so long we've been told to sit down and shut up. But the reality is nothing's going to change if we don't step up and show our value. And so for me to step up and show my CEO, this is what it could look like to partner with me more proactively, it changed the dynamic of our relationship. And again, I say that to anybody who's sitting in an HR function who's feeling like my CEO doesn't lean on me. I would ask yourself the question, with all the empathy in the world, well, what part do I have to play in this? And what role have I played in sort of instigating this dynamic that I don't actually want?
That's really well said. You work at a HR tech company, so I think it is a little bit different for you. Because you can actually sell. Yeah. And we were joking about this beforehand. I think Melanie's role is Chief People Officer, CMO, and CRO all in one. But I think another example is I worked at DoorDash, and we had every single person in the company dash once a month. And that's another way that everybody can get involved and touch the product and be involved. And so, to your point around HR is kind of off in the corner, I think that's one of the areas of dissatisfaction. And I love let's look in the mirror and see if actually we could do more and be more involved in the business and product such that we are thought of not as an HR leader, but as a business operator. And I think ultimately that is what the goal is.
I'll just second that. I mean, the best way to shift that is knowing that business so well, being able to articulate how you make money, ship product, get customers, keep them, what the P&L looks like what that whole story looks like, and actually having a point of view on that. You become to be seen differently. And I'm a big fan of the statement, we train people how to treat us. And I think that, to Melanie's point, we can be looked at like the parking lot in an offsite, just throw all that shit over there, and we're the parking lot. We're RTO, we're this, we're that, we're everything that I think is more moldable than some of these other functions, marketing, revenue, et cetera. And I think we do have power to shift that. And I think one of the best ways to start doing that is to participate in a way that's business first, not parking lot first, if that makes sense.
I love that in particular, because something we had started talking about when we were sort of prepping for this session was this idea that I do think a lot of people, both internally and externally, when it comes to HR, has sort of put us in this sort of corner where we think that HR, the value that we bring is engagement and employee satisfaction and retention. And actually, I think the value that we bring is literally anything to do with how people empower the business, whether that be getting rid of low performers or incentivizing high performers, or anything to do with people. The reason why I think that's so critical is I think that we're in a time right now where, the economy is not so great, and so our budgets have been cut, and we're not being incentivized to work on engagement activities. And so a lot of HR people are looking at that and seeing and feeling like that means that my power is being taken away. But actually, a really powerful thing that I think we ended up talking about is actually I think you have more power now. And actually, Kelly, I want to give you the mic because I think you're the one who said it in this way, is we have more power than ever when our company cares this much about things like performance management. And you had some great things to share on that.
Yeah, I mean, we're on stage now in a lot of ways, in a very different way. And I think, for me personally, right at Pendo, which I just left full time, a free agent for the first time in 25 years. Thank you, feels great. But the role was efficiency, rule of 40. How are we using everything at our disposal with our workforce and our people, and how we hire and how we're doing all of this? I mean, that's us, and that everything about that connects to the business. And so to Melanie's point, I was driving a lot of those C-team agendas with things like that, because for the first time in a long time, we are kind of the center of the hubcap, and all the functions are around us, because everything that we manage affects all of those things. And so how can you connect them together? Start leading those agendas with a point of view.
It's really well said, but I think a lot of people signed up for HR because they wanted to bring good into the world. They wanted to, in some cases, actually bring their own worldview into the business. And I think that's actually one of the biggest things that's changed over the course of the last 2 years, is if you went to a large HR conference, 3-4 years ago, we weren't talking about business metrics. We were talking about more, I call it the era of activism HR. And I feel like what you're talking about now being the center of the business has to do with driving business outcomes, versus we were always trying to make a point about how bringing our worldviews into the business, how that could be. So what's your take on this new era, Melanie, and where we're going as it relates to more of this activism HR?
Yeah, I think, to be really blunt, I don't think there's space for that right now in this economy. And I'm not sure that there ever should have been, if I'm being honest. My philosophy is that I think that the people function exists to build a people strategy that will empower the business strategy. And that's it. And if you pay attention, what that means is it starts with the business strategy. What is the business strategy? And then what people strategy do I need to create to then empower that business strategy? The reason I think that's so important is I think that many people have sort of in their mind, this is how you HR. And I'm going to take this way to HR from one company to the next. And the reality is I think that just doesn't work, because some companies are going to be more people forward and some companies are not. If you look at even, a general product, right? Some products, the value they bring is quality. Some products, the value they bring is speed, right? And so if you think about it as a company, right? Some companies, the value you're going to get at this company is that we're so people first. You're going to get all the perks and benefits. We're going to be a family. And some companies are going to be, the value is going to be, you're going to grow a shit ton in a small amount of time. It's not going to feel the best. We may not give you all the happy fun perks, but let me tell you, at the end of this 3-year war, you're going to be able to get hired at any company possible, right? But if you think about it, right, those are two completely different people strategies that you create depending on the kind of person you want to attract, because you need a different kind of a person to achieve a different business goal. So my answer really is, I don't think that works. I don't think you can come in with an agenda. I think you need to study the CEO, because it's their company at the end of the day. It's their decision to make. It's your decision to make whether or not you want to work with that CEO, right? But once you commit, you have to be in it. And if you're not in it, then either you put up with it or you leave, but you can't try and change it because it's not your company at the end of the day.
And understanding the business model. So, when I went to DoorDash in 2015, I'd just left Google, and I was working 35 hours a week. I was getting sushi at lunch, and I just thought oh, hey, I'm going to go to this startup backed by Sequoia. It's going to be great over there. Our office was in an animal hospital. On my first day, we shared one car. My wife dropped me off at 9 o'clock, and I was like, oh, pick me up at 6 o'clock, thinking I was going to stay late. By 8:30, nobody had left. And it was this really big wake-up call when I got home that night. I was like, holy shit, what did I just sign up for? And, I have a take that I think Google actually ruined tech culture because they built the best monopoly and money printer of all time. And we all look to Google as this shining star on the hill when they're literally one of the only unregulated monopolies left in the world. So they could do whatever the hell that they want. And so we all work backwards from what is Google or what is Meta doing? And in reality, the majority of us are not building HR or people programs at those companies. And instead, I think the first principle is like, what kind of company are we building? What is our business model? What does my founder care about? And starting from there. And I actually think you guys did an amazing job at that at Pendo, because Todd did care about some of those things, but you guys were still very much focused on business outcomes.
Yeah, but here's my real talk point on your activism, because I actually don't think it was like HR activism. Like I think that these programs were important, these topics were important, and now they're under pressure because of the macro and all these things. However, the way that you earn the right to do those things is by being a business value add leader. Even today, like if your company like really values you and you're adding so much revenue and brand and things that can be measured, and how that business works, I'm sure Roxanne will let Melanie do whatever the hell she wants. So I feel like it doesn't really matter what the time frame is. The best HR leaders earn the right to do these things by adding value as a business leader, right? And I've seen people. I've unfortunately gotten rid of people on my team that were so navel gazing. They wanted to literally do surgery and an engagement survey and geek out and dig it, and that's great. The executives, we don't give a fuck about that. Tell us what this means, what we're gonna do. Give me the real story. And that's how we need to lead. And I do think a lot of HR folks from the past, or some of these companies, they have the resources and they have the size to geek out on that stuff, and that is great. But you can't copy and paste that into every company. And I was at Google, and they said that's our motto. Exactly. We spent a shit ton of money. We don't care where it goes, because we're doing all these experiments, and we're having a great culture from it. We have all this innovation, and we know all this money goes out the window because it comes in, and we know that. And I was like, damn, I respect that. Like, that's explicit, and I love it. But it doesn't mean that Pendo, GitHub, and Looker should copy all these programs. It's a different planet.
Yeah. When you say business value, though, I don't want people to hear this like fluffy term that isn't tangible. What she really means is, for each business, there is a way that you can drive to the top and to the bottom line. You can drive value in your own business. But you shouldn't look over the fence at what the neighbor is doing, because those businesses are going to be very different. We should definitely learn from how other people are operating, but we shouldn't just copy it wholesale and expect it to work for our company. And I think we've been not the best at that over the course of the last few years. All right, I want to transition into performance management. So right now, it is 2024. And if you go back to the beginning of 2022, as it relates to venture-backed tech, we are still in a net decline from where headcount was at that point in 2022. So that means everyone knows about all these layoffs, and everyone's like, oh, it feels like things are getting better, but we still have not replaced those jobs, and I'm not sure if we're going to. One of the things that I'm seeing as an outcome of this is a microscope on talent. What Coinbase called it talent density. And I'm sure every single one of you has probably heard that from your founder or your CEO, is like, I want to have more talent density in the company. And where I see it showing up right now is, I'm calling it ruthless performance management, such that we're not doing a great job of setting expectations of what this person's job is, such that we're not doing a great job of giving them feedback anymore. But when we're feeling like they're not adding value, we need to immediately terminate them from the organization. Melanie.
Yeah.
Are you seeing that as well?
Oh boy. Okay.
Roxanne.
I know. So here's the thing. I actually, so very luckily at Athena, this is not how we approach things. But I always like to give the caveat. We're a startup company that is smaller. We're not like a 50,000 or even 5,000 person company. So we have the wiggle room to experiment. So we thought about this early on because I did have the buy-in. That is one of the great things of working at an HR tech company. There are some things that you already have buy-in on. We had the buy-in on this idea that talent density is critical. We need to set people up for success. So we early on came up with things like, for example, we color code our feedback. It's yellow, orange, red. Whenever you give constructive feedback, you have to give a color. So yellow is nice to have, just stretch opportunity. Orange is if you don't improve in this area, you're not going to get fired, but you're not going to get a promotion or an increase. Red is danger, danger, you will get fired. And it's so ingrained into our culture that when a manager is being like wishy-washy and sugarcoaty, the direct report will ask, I'm confused. What are you saying? Is this an orange or is it a red? I'm not sure.
Wait, is this in like your annual performance review, or like
Yes.
what's the cadence of this thing?
Ace and Raya are here right now. Am I lying? Do we or do we not do this?
What's the cadence?
So we do it every 6 months. We're probably going to drop it to a year. Don't repeat that.
That's interesting. That's like the opposite of what I keep hearing is like people are doing this more often so they can feel like they're giving feedback before they manage people.
I think that's because they're not regularly giving feedback, because the other thing we do is we have Feedback Friday. So every other Friday, managers and direct reports.
Sounds like a nightmare.
Oh, it's actually great.
Right before the weekend. Here we go.
People when I tell you, people look forward to it. They're like, oh, I got something for our Feedback Friday. I can't wait. Like people, because you normalize the behavior. I know. But to answer your question, because I recognize we're at the anomaly, but I shared that for anyone who's looking for tips. Feedback Fridays are great. Color coding your feedback is great. It just helps remove some of that confusion. To your point, I don't think many people are setting people up for success. I think what comes to mind for me is, yes, Nolan, I am hearing that a ton. And I think, quite frankly, it's like the worst business strategy I've ever heard, because it is so costly to fire someone that could have improved had you just given them honest and direct feedback, versus you fire them and then you hire someone else, you didn't fix the root cause, and now you're just going to run into this issue again. That is so fucking expensive. I don't know why anyone in their right mind would do it.
Okay, so everyone will agree with that in this room. Just taking the founder seat, what the founder is going to say is like, well, guess what, Melanie? There's so much great talent on the market right now. Like people are vying for this job. So like, I know that sounds great, but I don't want to invest any more dollars or resources into a lost cause. Like, let's just go replace them. And oh, by the way, I hate this one, by the way. I'm just being facetious, but we open a job and now 1,000 people apply in the first 24 hours, as if that's like, it's such a vanity metric. Yeah. But like, how do you respond to a founder when they say that, Kelly?
Yeah, look, I you know me, it's never one thing or the other. Sometimes that's accurate and sometimes it's not. And I'm just saying what I've seen, and I won't say the company, but in my own boardroom, some of my clients, what's happening is the pressure out there is causing boards, right? Where do they go first? We're too heavy, efficiency, blah, 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 people. You guys are too fucking nice. Go fire some people. Like, your culture's too nice. Literally, we're told this. You're too nice. The last 8 years have been great. You're all fat and happy, and you're too nice. Go do performance management. And I told Nolan on an episode, I have empathy for these employees because the rug gets pulled, and all of a sudden you go from, not Athena, clearly, but no feedback to all of a sudden you're getting all these cuts. And what I told our founder...
Still no feedback, to be clear.
Still no feedback, but what happens is you try to go from 0 to 100 in performance management without filling in the middle. You're stuck with a severance package now, because without feedback and all these things, right? We want them to sign a waiver and free the company of any claims because of the fact that we didn't do any feedback. So now you're looking at not just the cost of someone not being in the seat if you need to replace them, the cost of finding them and onboarding them and ramping them. Now we throw 3, usually sometimes 6, 9 months of severance for someone who realizes you got caught and is negotiating with a lawyer. And so times that by 30 people. I mean, that's what I talk about with my founder.
But aren't you giving severance anyways when you term somebody?
No, not if you're legitimately performance managing them.
Really?
Yeah.
Who does, raise your hand if you do not give severance when you terminate somebody.
Involuntarily through performance management.
I'm genuinely shocked.
Me too.
Wow.
Wow. So, okay, that's actually...
That was a non-judgmental wow. It was just a shocked wow, okay? It was just a neutral shocked wow.
It's what's interesting about that is I actually heard about that practice becoming more popular maybe like 18 months ago, and I was like, oh, that's not going to last. And anyways, that's what you guys can talk about.
I'll end. It's usually a problem with the how. It's usually a problem with how that person is managed, communicated to with respect, proactively, and a cordial situation. Once it goes off, they get upset, they start causing trouble, they get a lawyer, real or phantom, then an agreement comes out.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
Taping this.
I think we are. Whoops.
Okay. So we got like five. How are we doing? 5 minutes? I can't read.
Yeah,
Read
5
like
minutes.
that.
With these glasses.
Yeah, man.
I got
Kelly
20/20
brought up like a
vision.
piece of paper, her spectacles. It was great.
Whatever.
All right.
His iPod didn't work yesterday in our
All right.
last session, so.
All right. Last 5 minutes. It is, we're entering the back half of 2024. Everyone's gone through a ton of adversity over the course of the last 2 years. What is your advice to the folks sitting in this room as they move forward going into 2025? Melanie, I'll start with you.
Oh man, where do I have to start? Okay. Okay. My advice. I think it's important that people figure out what it is that you want and also what options you have to choose from and what action you're prepared or not prepared to take. The reason I say that is I'm going to say, I think maybe like a tough thing to hear sometimes, but I think helpful long term, which is I talk to a lot of people who are in roles and they're very unhappy. And to Nolan's point, right, about like the job market's not great right now, I asked them, okay, are you prepared to quit? And the answer is no, I am not. And so so my answer is sort of like, okay, so what are we talking about here? Like, are we talking about you want to quit or you don't want to quit? Or are we talking about you're not happy and how do we make this as manageable, as bearable as possible? Because that's a very different discussion. And so if you need to have that tough truth and acknowledgement that the reality is I'm unhappy, but I'm not going to leave, I would think about, okay, so then what can you do to make this more bearable? Maybe you need to care a little bit less. Maybe you need to get an increase to like a pay increase or promotion to make this feel more worth it to you, right? Maybe you need to, I don't know, have a conversation with your CEO, or maybe just stop trying to have conversations with your CEO that you know are not going to go anywhere, so give it up. But I think we need to have real conversations with ourselves about what action am I willing to take, what action am I not willing to take, and then what are my options within that? Because if not, it gets pretty toxic for yourself to keep talking in circles and circles about a thing that you're never going to change. And it's better just to accept it and then work with what you've got. It is my personal recommendation. And I say this, I know that I'm really happy at my job. I really am. But I mean, Kelli and Nolan know because I've chatted with you all too. I chat with other HR people. That doesn't mean everything's easy peasy. That doesn't mean there aren't hard times. There are hard times. And so I have to think very closely about what are the things I have the power to change? Great, go take action. What are the things I don't have power to change? Great, figure something out. Like accept it or move on, but don't keep complaining about it.
There's a great book called Bad Therapy, which describes what you just talked about, which is the more you talk about your problems, the more those problems feel like they're unsolvable.
I mean, my advice, and I did this for myself about 18 months ago, is, have a point of view. Stop, like get a journal, think about what you want, what you're doing, have a point of view on your business. Is it going the right direction? Is it the culture you want? Like stop all the hamster wheel of the work day to day. Stop the clock and have a point of view on what it is and what it isn't. To Mel's point, what can you live with and what can you not? But I leave you with the most important that I've done the past 6 weeks since I left the full-time world, is get out from under the rock. Coming here, I saw so many people I hadn't talked to in a long time yesterday. I had lunch with Sally and Monica and AJ just right now, and it just gives you energy, gives you perspective, it gives you energy, it exudes your confidence, it gives you proactive network to think about what's next, even if you're happy in what you're doing. You never know when doors will open and some weird project or some cool thing comes along. Talk to a recruiter once a month. Atrophy is the worst thing we can do. Practice your skills, talk to a recruiter, get some confidence. They'll probably say, hey, we want you to move on to the next round. No, I'm happy, but you know that if you wanted to, you fucking could. That's cool. That's helpful. You walk into your job with swagger. You walk into your job with energy. With an attitude that is contagious. So those are mine.
I love that, Kelli. And it's what Kelli's describing is expanding your surface area of luck. And in our jobs, it's so easy to just like put the blinders on and go deep because everybody's buried. But the more that you can pop your head out and go talk to friends, it turns out that like maybe your problems aren't as bad as you thought. And oh, by the way, like you can connect with other people, help them solve problems, spur new ideas, and keep your network warm. That's one of the smartest things. It's the best piece of advice that you gave. I'll give you guys one, which is be a yes and person. your CEOs and your founders are coming to you with probably crazy ideas and stuff that makes you feel uncomfortable, maybe stuff that you didn't sign up for. And so I think it's really important for HR to not be branded as the organization of no, and instead to understand the business and what the business is trying to achieve and saying, yes, I hear you, and let's try it this way. So that's what we got for you guys. Thanks for the time.